Welcome to the second episode of Cycle Spartanburg. It's been a year since we taped the last episode, and there's been some great news here in Spartanburg. Over the past year, we've been designated as an honorable mention for a bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Cyclists, and that shows what hard work's been going into making Spartanburg a more cycling-friendly community. Last episode, if you remember, we talked about cycling safety, and remember how we talked about not riding on the sidewalks, about riding on the shoulder of the road, and making sure at corners you took the whole lane so that cars really treated you like a vehicle. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about bicycle commuting, how to get to and from work, to and from the store, and to and from school potentially safely.
That's right, and one of the first things to think about when you're considering whether or not you're going to bike for transportation and where you might go is to consider where you live, what neighborhood you're in, and what's close by, what's nearby that you can actually go to by bike.
Exactly, and you may be at home and already thinking that you don't live close enough to anything to commute. We encourage you to think about places you may have to drive to and then bike commute to get started. Everybody doesn't, unfortunately, live in a community where they can bike to the store or bike to school or bike to work, but with all the infrastructure that's going into Spartanburg now with the trails and the bike lanes, there's lots of destinations that you can drive to, get on a bike, bike to the store, bike with your kids, or bike into dinner in downtown.
That's right. And so as you look at what destinations are within bicycling distance and where you might want to go, if there is a drugstore or a school nearby, that's when you start looking at what actual route you're going to take.
Right.
The best way to get there, the best way to get out of your neighborhood, and what roads you're going to feel most comfortable on when you're biking.
Right. And Gene, I think that's one of the most important things is about road and comfort. So often I usually ride my bike to work during the week, and people ask me what route I usually take. Well, I strategically have a route. It's not necessarily the shortest route, but it is the safest. And that really determines on a lot of things. It determines on road traffic. There are several 4-lane roads that I could take into work, and I choose not to because of the amount of traffic. That's really a personal issue too. Some people may feel more safe on those. I encourage folks to take the lesser traveled roads and really think creatively about how the best way to get to work is on roads that aren't very congested.
That's right, and I think it's really important for every bicyclist to know their own level. And there's a progression there, and there's some cyclists who are very comfortable riding on roads with heavy traffic or high speeds, but there's a way to build up to that. And so if you're at a point of starting out bicycling, it's best to choose roads that look safe to you and that feel safe to you, and start with those routes, even though they may be a little bit longer. Take a route that's comfortable for you and work your way up to more difficult routes if that's what you choose to do.
Another thing people sort of take for granted and they realize a little too late and get frustrated is our geography. It's one of the greatest things about Spartanburg, but we do have a lot of hills. Hills really impact if you're riding to work or if you're riding to the store. I've ridden to the store before on a hilly route and had to carry kids and groceries in a trailer up the hill. It's not fun, and it almost ruins your experience. So I really encourage people, like you said, Gene, to think about their level and to think about the route, not only traffic, but also hills.
Right. And Kurt, one of the questions that people tend to have when they're thinking about commuting to work is whether or not they're going to show up to work sweaty or exhausted or tired for the day. And choosing your route can play a big part in that. If you choose a route that's less hilly, then you'll have more energy when you get to work. If you choose a route that gives you the option of going at your own pace, you can go to work slow. You don't have to be a part of the rat race getting into work, and you can take it at your own pace and not end up being sweaty when you show up to work because you've had a nice relaxing ride.
Exactly, and that's a great point, Gene. We've talked a little bit about commuting to the store, to the drugstore, and that's kind of easy if you think about it. You really don't need to worry about what you look like when you get to the store. You don't need to worry about, really all you need is something to carry your groceries in. Again, you want to think about your route, and you want to make sure you plan that accordingly and be able to make sure you can accomplish what you need to accomplish. But really, biking to work is a different ball game. I get questions all the time. How do you show up and you're not sweaty, or how do you really do that? And I think there's a couple of things you need to remember. We've talked a lot about the real important things, and that is making sure your route looks good and those kinds of things. A couple of real specific, and Gene, you've got a great example. You rode in long pants today. I usually, if I'm heading into work, wearing long pants, and you roll the pants leg up. People often ask, why do you roll your right pants leg up? And it's so you don't get grease on your pants from the chain. So if you see people riding their bikes with one leg up, it's not a fashion statement. It really is a practical application to make sure you don't have grease on your leg. Folks often wonder too, do you have to change clothes? I advocate for everybody, if you have space at work, to put extra clothes there. It's not a necessity, but it really does help out. And if you've got a lot of room, then it's really good. You can put a sort of a week's worth of wardrobe there. I don't have that issue. I don't have that luxury. I have a couple of shirts and a suit at work just in case I need to do that. But oftentimes I ride into work with what I have on.
Another thing to think about beyond just what you're wearing is actually what you're carrying with you when you go to work or the store or whatever. And options for bikes that you can actually attach to it are the nice pouch on the back, where you can make sure you keep a cell phone, your ID, which is always good to have when you're biking, but also you can attach a rear rack on the back of a bike that allows you to actually hold a bag where you can put in paperwork, things that you might buy at the drugstore, whatever it might be. There's a number of options of ways to store things on your bike while you're riding to make sure that you have a way to get everything that you need to and from. You can also, of course, always opt for the backpack. It's a really easy way for a woman to carry her purse, or for any worker to carry their briefcase. That's actually a really practical way to commute by bike. You can also even get a trailer if you want to take your kids with you.
Exactly.
If you're biking to school or to the drugstore or to the library, you have the option of attaching a trailer too.
Exactly. And I want to talk about that trailer issue in just a second, but I want to address the main question, which is folks wonder, so if you show up to work sweaty, do you really need a shower? Well, if you've got a shower at work, then you don't have that issue. If you don't have a shower at work, sure, it gets hot in the summer times. I mean, you can take a washcloth to work. Every office should have a bathroom. You can freshen up. Again, if you've got room at work to keep those things that you need to make yourself feel comfortable when you get back, and so that you're fresh and ready to work, that's great, and your coworkers won't run you out of the office. So that's really an issue that some people ask all the time, but really I've found not to be overburdensome. Go ahead.
Well, in addition, I think there are a number of practical ways to solve some of those problems of returning from a bike ride into work. But I think also generally in workplaces, you can make a good case if you take the time to talk to your employer, talk to your coworkers, and let them know why you're biking to work, and that there's a number of benefits for the entire workplace to have employees who are staying healthy, who are improving their healthcare costs, and who are actually, it's been shown that folks who commute actively to work have less absenteeism because they're healthier and they get sick less often. So some of those benefits that are provided to the workplace, I think, can balance out some of the negatives that some people might feel initially.
Right, and I don't know about you, but the days that I ride into work, my head is clear when I get in there, and when I ride home from work, I'm such a better person by the time I get home, just having that break on the bike with the fresh air. I just want to make one last pitch in closing that I encourage folks to look at different ways to incorporate their children in commuting. I ride my son to school often. I take my kids to the store on the bike. It's a wonderful way to spend time with the family, but what I hope it's doing is encouraging them to realize that when they get older, that there's other ways to transport themselves to and from school and to and from the store than an automobile.
There's actually a number of resources right here in Spartanburg for anyone who's interested in becoming a bicycle commuter. There's a number of groups in Spartanburg that are working to encourage that, and if you go to the website for Partnership for Active Living, active-living.org, there's a number of resources posted there, as well as an actual bicycling and walking guide that can show you the safest and most convenient and friendly places to walk in Spartanburg. In addition, there's a number of encouragement opportunities for folks to get out and bike with some of the folks in their community and learn some of the safety skills that are associated with that. If you go to the website, you can also check for a number of classes that are offered to teach about great bicycle commuting tips.
Great. Well, that's about all we have today for this show. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch, and hopefully you'll find yourself out on a bike, commuting, whether it's to work, whether it's to the store, to the drugstore, or just out for a nice ride in the beautiful weather. Thanks for watching.